The world of HEIAN, the golden age of curse techniques. This is the most important and most influential time period for Japan and for practitioners of Jujutsu as well. Sorcerers, curses, shamans, poets, scholars, monks, everyone involved in this era was in the midst of an amazing revolution of power, of knowledge, of folklore, religion, and even more. The HEIAN period was truly a time of awakening in Japan, and this era was the very foundation of the events we see today in the modern Jujutsu Kaisen timeline. Hello my brothers, this is Enemy Stand User, and today we will be taking a peek inside of the world of HEIAN. I myself am very interested in this timeline in real life, as well as the course of Jujutsu Kaisen, because Gege Akutami has drawn so much inspiration from this era as far as Jujutsu, Buddhism references, as well as feared deities like Ryomen Sukuna, and other famous cultural aspects of Japan. Today I wanted to do my best to kind of set the scene of how this era may have been like in Jujutsu Kaisen and what or who we may see in the future of the series. I want to state now that I myself am not any sort of historian or history scholar on this Japanese subject. A lot of what I say is a bit of headcanon based on multiple different sources, so remember to take some stuff I say with a grain of salt, because Gege himself, he's the author. He can shape and mold his story however he wants, despite what actual history says. And the history itself is heavily superstitious, and it changes from different versions in folklore, how it's inspired. So I'll do my best to generally give y'all awesome brothers the best picture of what this era was like in Jujutsu Kaisen's world with shamans and curses. But if y'all are interested, I'll link the Reddit thread below and other sources to where I was inspired to talk about the HEIAN time period in this subject. It's really cool. So let's jump back in time to the golden age and see the beauty, the horror, and the wonder of this cursed era in the HEIAN period. The HEIAN era was about a 400-year period ranging from 794 to 1185 AD. This era started when Emperor Kanmu moved the Japanese capital to an area called Heian-kyo, which is modern-day Kyoto, and regarded even in this era today as sacred land. But a reason the capital was moved by the emperor and established in Heian-kyo may have been to steer clear from the recent Buddhist teachings spreading all throughout Japan and Asia. If you remember in Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 74, Lord Tengen was alive even well before the HEIAN era and the Nara period 200 years before. That's 1200 years ago. And Tengen opted to spread his teachings of Buddhism and Jujutsu through the land, and eventually he did succeed in his teachings. However, there were still those who distanced themselves from these beliefs, such as the Star Plasma Vessel Church and others, sparking a divide in this religion. During this time though, in the HEIAN period, cursed energy and cursed spirits of course existed in the world, but within the Nara and HEIAN era, there have been new individuals with bloodlines and new curse techniques who have started awakening as a result of Tengen's teachings and influence with religion, curses, as well as cursed energy optimization. These powerful newly awakened shamans have been granted supernatural powers and meshed themselves with the non-sorcerer society that we see in history. In this era, this was a time of massive political, social, and economic change in Japan. This was a serious glow up for the country and set a lot of foundations for modern day society in the country that we see today. The people, the courts, the clans exploded into words and language and paintings as a way to express their creativity. They even created early kanji like hiragana and katakana in Japanese manuscripts to spread their knowledge in writing. This is actually extremely important because now these new sorcerers have inspiration and teachings from Buddhism to practice hand signs and manifest techniques based on their teachings from this era. And even today, many Jujutsu techniques and abilities are heavily inspired by Buddhist gods, sutras, hand signs, seals, weapons, and more. It was an explosion of teachings and new ideas. Many sorcerers even experimented with these hand signs and were able to create both lethal and non-lethal domain expansions with powerful embedded innate techniques. In fact, non-lethal ancient rule domains were very common amongst this time. Also, in the height of this era, a sorcerer named Saratsuna Ashia of the Ashiadoman clan even created a technique to combat domain expansions using simple domain to protect the weak and combat the violent effects of a domain expansion. Sorcerers even started to apply the negative cursed energy effects from 2 sources to create the infamous reverse curse technique used to heal human flesh from bloodied battles of sorcerers. And these are only a couple examples of advancement between shamans during this time. Who knows what other skills originated from ancient Heian Jujutsu? Now, this era was not at all without fault. This may have probably been one of the greatest changes in Japan's culture, but there was a lot of butting heads and conflict. Japan itself sits on an archipelago. It's like an isolated island or country, so this gave birth to infighting amongst its own family clans. Now, if you know anything about Japan, you probably know amongst the imperial families, the feudal lords, all that biz, they fought constantly. It was always a power struggle or some sort of power vacuum, clans killing clans, betrayal, love affairs, cheating, war, even Buddhist monks rose in power to fight. It was really crazy. It was really bad. Basically, the imperial court had almost no way to control these powerful clans that existed and established themselves and fought. They basically fought the government during this time. Of course, I won't go into all these families and clans. There are just way too many of them. But right now, what I want to focus on is the big 3 vengeful curses with Sugawara Michizane, as well as the Fujiwara clan. Now, brothers, let's do the math here. If the naive, non-sorcerer humans are fighting with wars and everything, what do you think the actual sorcerers with godlike powers are doing? Yep, they're fighting too. The Heian era is often described in the manga as the height of sorcery, and these sorcerers and curses were built different. But in context with the seat of power in Japan, the Fujiwara clan was highly prestigious, and likely it was a family with awakened sorcerers, as Uro Takako served that family as captain of the Stars, Sun, and Moon Squad. The way the Fujiwaras are portrayed in history makes them seem very cunning and manipulative and influential in Japan. They made a name for themselves. In fact, both Sugawara no Michizane and Fujiwara Tokihira were close to the imperial family. Sugawara and Fujiwara both had minister-like positions as basically the right hand of the emperor, and this evidently made them and their families rivals, as the Fujiwara devised a plot to kick out Sugawara from power and convince the emperor to exile Sugawara from the imperial court. So the Fujiwaras seem to have been very manipulative, and even in the manga, Uro was stated to have been betrayed by the Fujiwaras and executed as a scapegoat for one of them killing their own clan members, earning Uro her deep-seated hatred and return from the afterlife with Kenjaku's help. On the other hand, Sugawara no Michizane is actually Gojo and Yuda's ancient ancestor, and while I can't really say what his morals were like or how good he was as a person, he was described in history as a poet and a scholar. And in the Jujutsu Kaisen timeline, he was also a powerful, revered sorcerer. But in his exile, due to the Fujiwara's plot, Sugawara died in his exile. However, in his resentment, this once great scholar turned into a vengeful, cursed spirit of Japan that cursed this country in his wake, causing disaster. In the height of sorcery, in the peak of aristocracy, evidently this era was a lot more dangerous than modern times, and people as a whole had a different view on life. And I want to say that this era was more in tune with curses and the influence curses had on humanity in Japan, to be very malignant, like folklore actually coming to life. These were dark times. The land was plagued by rebellion, sickness, disease, civil war, famine, drought, floods. The people of Japan were incredibly superstitious during this time, and in their human fear, they gave birth to powerful, hungry, and evil curses and deities. Their fear literally fueled these curses, and these cursed spirits of this age are described as more violent and vicious in this era because of the humans' fear and resentment from earthquakes and calamities. This was truly a cesspool of horror, war, and disaster. Many humans thought these horrible calamities were the direct result of curses and vengeful spirits like Sugawara, only making their fear increase. In the midst of this chaos, though, of war and of bloodshed, with humans as the energy source, a true demon emerged. Ryomen Sukuna wrought the land in his wake as the one and only king of curses. Sukuna needs no introduction, as in this Heian era, he was truly alive and in his element, living only for his own desires and battling the best of the best. This human-turned-demon was feared across Japan in the Nihon Shoki legend, a four-armed, two-faced demon god who brings about calamity, destruction, and misfortune to all. In theory, Sukuna was likely worshipped due to the tales humans spread about him, and he may have been some sort of deity given the moniker King of Curses, and was revered by the likes of his followers like the monk Uraume, who serves under Sukuna and is hinted at being a chef for Sukuna's twisted diet of human flesh. He was like an eldritch being, that of an ascended entity that is recognized as the strongest and was an absolute pinnacle of strength in all of Jujutsu history. The very nature of his presence was godlike, as he had no regard for life besides his own. Even his very tools of destruction are holy references to Buddhism and Hinduism, with two of his malevolent tools possibly being Vajra, a divine thunder spear representing irresistible and unstoppable force, and the trident Trishula, which destroys creation and vanquishes beings, very fitting for the king of curses, correlating Shiva, the god of destruction in Hinduism. Sukuna was truly a malevolent king. Though even in his peak, Sukuna's reign eventually did come to a halt. Something or some sort of battle occurred to end Sukuna's rampage, and his will reverberated across the land into 20 different cursed objects to transcend time and be reborn 1,000 years into the future. It's very possible the entity Kenjaku was involved in Sukuna's cursed object transformation, now that he's actually done the same to dozens of other sorcerers and people in the culling games. But Kenjaku may have been deeper than that. He may have even been a contributor in this era. I personally would not be surprised if Kenjaku was even involved in the imperial court or was even a Fujiwara himself, because then he'd have power to orchestrate all of this chaos in Japan and keep humanity in this country in fear for the world he wants to create. The possibilities really are insane. Now we enter the fall of this Heian era and the complete establishment of Jujutsu doctrine. Now, during the late stage of this era, the imperial courts got the bright idea to disband their official military and separate into warring states called shohen, which is basically every clan for themselves in private militia, private military, and hired mercenaries, which gave rise to the warrior class and the famous samurai we all know about and we're familiar with in the next era, the Kamakura era, with the 700-year warrior caste. Now, I can't confirm this or for when the Jujutsu foundations actually stabilized Jujutsu with Master Tengen of this era, because we get hints that Jujutsu might have started here in the Nara era, but I believe that it was toward the end stage of this Heian period where the Jujutsu society really started to really take shape with its foundations. As in humanity's darkest times, Jujutsu sorcerers are always operating behind the scenes, and the climax of Heian was definitely dark time. It was literally nationwide wars, curses, rampagings, and natural disasters. However, out of this rubble came distinguished and powerful sorcerers who may have even fought the likes of Sukuna himself, since these Golden Age shamans were so much more skilled and more powerful than modern day counterparts. Gege has given us very little information about these Heian sorcerers and who actually were the big three vengeful curses, but based on the fan book, and family quotes and poems we see in history and what Gege is writing, we can kind of narrow it down. Of course, he was mentioned earlier, but Sugawara no Michizane is the Gojo family ancestor, and he was likely a very powerful and skilled shaman, even able to transcend death as a vengeful curse like his fellow sorcerer heads. He's described as the god Tenjin in his new curse form, and his vengeful spirit brought about unnatural destruction and calamity, as well as the deaths of many imperial nobles in Japan. Next is Taira no Masakado, the Zenin family ancestor. This person has a lot of renditions to his character in history, but when he was human, he was described as a powerful warrior and often depicted like a samurai using his sword in battle. He was a descendant of Emperor Kanmu and was in a high elitist family. In record, one of his famous quotes is, "If you are not Taira family, you are not worthy as a human." Very reminiscent to the Zenin motto and the Zenin's own bigotry and shamanistic ideals. In his more famous altercation in battle though, Taira was staging a rebellion against the imperial court and died in a skirmish, possibly against the Fujiwara, leading him to being decapitated in humiliation during the Battle of Kojima, where his corpse was taken to the capital. As a result, he became a vengeful, cursed spirit in his resentment, and he was an enemy to the throne, and often he was depicted as a headless entity that causes calamity and misfortune. I don't know about you guys, but Zenin is written all over his character. Finally, we have Kamo no Yasunori, or a more profound title of Onmyuji. This is an astounding sorcerer with many names, stories, and titles. In some versions, he is Emperor Sutoku, who was involved with blood and his death was tied with blood as a vengeful cursed spirit. In other versions, he was actually the Onmyuji, which Gege stated that he is in the fanbook. An Onmyuji is handpicked by the emperor as the chief spiritual consultant in the HEIAN government, meaning Kamo was the best of the best. In legend, a shaman named Abe no Seimei was also appointed as Onmyuji, and said to have been one of the greatest sorcerers to ever live. Even Mappa left an Easter egg in the anime about Abe's existence in JJK with his famous pentagram seal. This doesn't really mean Kamo and Abe were the same person per se, but their rank as Onmyuji has serious merit, and it does make sense that their rank was so high because the Kamo family has the highest nobility among the clans and are virtually ingrained in the higher-ups inner circle in the Jujutsu Foundation. All three of these ancestors are associated with the Jujutsu Foundation in one way or another, and basically laid out how the Jujutsu moved forward in the future with Tengen's guidance or his support. I don't think they all lived during the same time, but they still all turned into vengeful curses and possibly have some heated resentment to the Fujiwara clan. I cannot stress enough how influential the Fujiwaras were as a clan. Truly, it all should go full circle in the scope of the series, and I really do hope we get more callbacks and references to this era. And guys, there's just a lot of references already in the series that Gege gave us with sorcerers, curses, and powers that I just do not have time to go over. Princess Hishihime may have been a straw doll user like Nobara, Fujiwara's rise in power, Abe no Seimei's and Ashiyodoman's sorcerer rivalry, the Night of 100 Demons, other vengeful spirits. There's a whole universe of information Gege can use, and we've only scratched the surface of the HEIAN iceberg. The era started out prosperous and was an amazing evolution in Japan's social and cultural climate, but after that 400 years, this golden age turned into their own downfall, and at least in JJK's context, it all began spiraling into chaos, beginning distorted, because the age of curses and chaos will soon return once again. That's it for this video though, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching. This was probably my most theory heavy and research focused and very unnecessary video I made, but I had a ton of fun making it and talking to y'all about this, and I hope you guys had fun too. There will definitely be more videos like this in the future, but please comment your thoughts below. I love hearing you guys' input, and read each and every single one of the comments. So please share your own theories and predictions. Check out the links below as well, and Kyle Anime Scooter on Twitter. I got a lot of my thoughts from them, and it's really amazing how creative and well put together this community is. I'm loving JJK at the moment, and I really do hope in the future there will be some sort of HEIAN flashback or something like that. It'd be peak if Gege did that. But this has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.